The Maple Leafs get sloppy against the Devils and pay. And we have some updates on a few of the Maple Leafs absentees. So we'll get into all of that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, along with my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Oh, I did pretty well on FanDuel tonight, to be honest with you, Dave. The Leafs did not fare well. Obviously, they lost 6-3 to the New Jersey Devils. But my best bet cash in the first period, I took Austin Matthews 5+ shots, and it cashed in the first period, dude. Like this guy, the team as itself, they came out on fire and just were shooting machines, and it was awesome. That cash, and then my same game parlay ended up cashing also in the second period. But unfortunately, the Leafs were not able to cash in on the money line victory as they fell to the New Jersey Devils by a score of 6-3. There was an empty net goal thrown in there late in the game. But what happened there, Dave? Like it seemed like the Leafs were just going to run the Devils out of the rink the way that they were playing in that first period. Somehow they found themselves down 2-1 after, significantly outplaying New Jersey. And then all of a sudden the game kind of fell apart there in the second and third, and they went, they didn't go home. I guess they left the arena without points, but another, tough start on home ice.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of is the theme of them for this season, right? It doesn't matter how many chances you put on net. You could be, out shooting the team, out chancing them. If you're not taking care of the details in your own end, if you're not playing smart, you're going to have that result. And that's what the Leafs have done many times this year. And frankly, it's annoying because we kind of hear all the time, lessons learned. You got to learn your lesson, right? We got to play more mature, this and that. That's why, like, a lot of people are talking about what the guys are saying after the game, and I'm like, I've heard it. I don't need to hear it. I need to start seeing it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm very much a believer in show me, don't tell me. And I think you're referring to Austin Matthews post game was asked, what kind of happened, and he flat out came out and said it was an immature game by us, and we've heard that a lot, over the course of this season. Like the last few years, it's been, we got to learn from this, learn lessons, yada yada. This year, it seems like maturity has been the word choice that they've used a lot. Either, we played a mature game, or there was too much immaturity within the game. And that's what we saw tonight from the I think I lost you for a second there. Did I lose you for a second there?
Yeah, you lost you for a bit there.
Yeah, I think I unplugged my mic really. Hold on one sec. Let me get this thing back up and running. Are we back?
Yep, I hear you.
Messy? Okay. But yeah, so like, essentially you look at what they're talking about and it's okay. We've heard this before, right? We've heard this before. You gotta just buckle down. Like we're getting to the point in the season where you can't be learning these lessons anymore, and you can't be talking about how you're still playing immature. Because if you have, one or two games like this a month from now, buds, you're packing your stuff for the summer and you're going golfing pretty early. So not you can't bury the team, because I still thought that they played well enough. They probably should have won if it wasn't for the key mistakes. Jake Allen played well on the other side. Like there was a lot of really good opportunities that the Leafs had and probably should have scored on and outplayed New Jersey. But again, when you give up some high quality chances, it only takes a couple to really sink you. And that's really where Toronto kind of landed themselves tonight. Let's quickly get to the good, the bad, the ugly, because I feel like that's a good way to break down tonight's game when we talk about some of the good and then the bad and then what we thought was ugly for tonight. In terms of the good, like I think you can't complain about how they played in the first period. It was awesome. It was fast. It was. They were urgent. They scored like a minute into the game. Really nice breakaway goal by Tyler Bertuzzi. They led the expected goal margin, 75% expected goals. They outshot them 25-10, 25 shots in the first period. And Matthews had 5 of them. I think Nick Robertson had 5 shots in the first period or something like that. He finished the game with 6. So there was a lot to really like in that first period. But outside of that, or you can also, touch on that too, Dave. What else did you like in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I thought again that first period, I'm surprised that they didn't have a lead, right? Like they were all over the Devils. They did everything you want to do, and we said got to get off to a good start, right? Make the Devils play in their own end. They did a lot of that, right? And the other good too is like, Nylander and Matthews, when the team needed a pick me up, they were the guys that got the goals to give them the lead, right? There was a bit of a pushback after you fell, after you're trailing there. So I did like that. They had a very concerted effort to get into the high danger areas. The only thing they didn't do was score in those high danger areas, which, you know what? Jake Allen, that was a great performance. Like that's what the Devils have been missing all year from goaltending.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong about that. Like they could have used performances like that all year long and didn't get it, didn't even get half of that type of performance, or else, this Devils team should be in a playoff run. Like you look at the talent that's there, like Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Timo Meier. You look on the back end, like Luke Hughes is back there. Like this guy's been a stud. Simon Nemec is a good young defenseman. Like they've got some really good players. Obviously, Dougie Hamilton's injured, but you look at this Devils team, man, they should be a playoff team, but they're not because they just didn't get anything even near that type of goaltending all season long. And if I'm a Devils fan, I'm probably pissed about that win because it makes me think like what could have been, right? What could have been if you just made that trade, 2 months earlier, right? Like even a month earlier, how could they have won 3 or 4 more games and been right into the mix there with Washington, with Philly, with Detroit for those final, few spots. But that's for Trey over on Locked On Devils to complain about.
Yeah.
In terms of the bad for tonight, Dave, what didn't you like from this game?
I mean, I don't think I'm not gonna put this as Joseph Woll blame game, but that first shot can't go in, man.
No.
And Sheldon Keefe made it a point to say 2 games in a row, the first shot's going in. Put your team now. Luckily, this one didn't put them behind the 8 ball because they already had the 1-0 lead. But that's a goal there. You're just like, come on. But like the thing I didn't like about that goal on top of that was, what's Lyubushkin doing, man? Like stick out, not really doing anything with Hughes. Like challenge him, make the guy actually work to get that shot off. It was way too passive.
Well, I almost wonder if he, Lyubushkin was kind of surprised by it. Like it's not too often that a defenseman walks over the blue line and rips it from that far out.
Yeah.
Like I doubt Lyubushkin was thinking, I got to close in on a shot here. And then by the time he realized, oh, this is happening, it was too late. Which again, like as a defenseman, you got to be ready for it. Like it's not an excuse for Lyubushkin. You do have to be ready for it. But I do also wonder how surprised he was that Luke Hughes did that. And maybe even Joseph Woll too. Like, was he ready for that shot? Didn't seem like it based on how it kind of ended in the back of the net there, but not a good shot. I thought Joseph Woll didn't have his best game tonight as well. Allowed 5 goals on 24 shots. A couple of them, obviously, I don't really blame him. Like the 2-on-1 on Hischier, okay, it's a 2-on-1. There's a couple like Timo Meier's goal that was just kind of sent out in front. There's traffic, that's just a good goal, right? It's tough to have that one. But like the Jack Hughes, okay, it's a breakaway and those are tough, but you hate seeing 5-hole goals on the breakaway when it's like, you just put your paddle down, you take away the 5-hole, force him to beat you up high instead of sliding it. That's just one of those goals you didn't love to see, especially since it really iced the game for the Devils as well. So I didn't think Joseph Wall brought his A game tonight, especially when we were looking forward to it after the performance he put on Sunday against Carolina.
Yeah, like the Carolina game was a tougher game. I don't know what it is too. Like he's playing so much better on the road than he is at home.
Dude,
Like,
all
it's kind of
the
both
Leafs.
goals.
It's the whole team. No, it's the whole
Yeah.
team, dog. Like legitimately, the whole team. Do you know the Leafs are the number one road scoring team in the NHL?
Yep.
Like it's the whole team for whatever reason. They're on home ice and just get frazzled, and they can't pull out wins on home ice. They're nearly a 500 team if you include like overtime losses and whatnot. They're like a 500 team on home ice. It just doesn't make any sense because last year that was a big strength of theirs was their schedule on home ice. I think they were a top 3 team on home ice last year, if I'm not mistaken, their home record. And now this year, you look at it after this game, and now they're 19, 13, and 3 on home ice. So that's 19 wins and 16 losses. That's just 3 games over 500. Not good enough. And I guess silver lining looks like the Leafs are going to start, on the road in the playoffs, and they'll have to play more road games than home games, I guess, if you want to look for the silver lining there, Dave.
I mean, that's really it, right? I was kind of saying, it's like, it's a good thing they're not going to have to rely on the home crowd as much in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, again, I want to see Joseph Wall grab hold of a little bit of an opportunity here with Samsonov out. That game right there is not, that just wasn't it. And it's going to get tougher. The road's not getting any easier. And maybe, you know what? He's got to get into a bit of a rhythm here. I know some people are going to say, maybe they don't play him next game. No, you put him right back in there. Give him a chance to bounce back. I understand you need points and stuff, but you also need to play better in front of your goalie. And that's kind of what Sheldon Keefe made a point of saying after the game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a bit of column A and column B. Did Joseph Wall, allow a couple of softies? Yes, but also a few of those goals. I mean, that there's defensive breakdowns left, right, and center, which leads me to the ugly. And that's exactly what the ugly was throughout the night. I mean, in the second and third period, the puck protection was poor. They ended up with 19 giveaways tonight for the Maple Leafs and a couple of really, really costly ones at that. And, some really bad pinches, some bad reads in the offensive end, and which cost them obviously in transition the other way. I just thought defensively they were an absolute mess for the back half of the game. And I mean, the team agreed, obviously, that things fell apart in the second and third, and the stats, the scoreboard would all indicate that as well. So for me, that was kind of the ugly for tonight.
Yeah, it was just, for me, it was their inability to realize, to stop shooting them, like stop them the mistakes, right? Don't plug the holes, stop the leaks. Jake McCabe, why are you pinching so much? And when you're pinching, you got to make sure someone's got to be covering you. And I think it was Nylander, if I'm not wrong, on the 2-on-1 that led to the Heischer goal. Like, you got to recognize the situations there. The Devils love those rush opportunities. You give them those odd man rushes, and the Leafs have been guilty of this for the last few games. This isn't just a tonight issue. They've been guilty of this the last few games, and that's got to stop.
Yep, 100%. It's a weird little sort of like a habit that's kind of crept into the game here. Got the details, man. It just goes right back to got to get the details right in the first period. It seemed like the details were pretty good outside of a couple of instances, but then it really kind of fell off as they started to push and force things, and the game got away from them, obviously. So yeah, that wraps up the game. 6-3 was the loss, which means Toronto doesn't pick up any more wins and doesn't pull away at all from the Lightning. And they didn't play tonight, right? The Lightning, no. I don't believe played. No. So, but that's the one game. That's the game they had in hand that they've now blown. So this series now between Toronto and Tampa could come down to the final game of the season, like we talked about yesterday. There's still 2 games to go between Tampa and Toronto. and they now only have a 4-point buffer. If Tampa wins both of those games, there's a good chance that Tampa could jump Toronto in the standings. So something to obviously keep an eye on over the final now 11 games of the season. When we come back, there was some updates prior to the game about some of the Leafs absentees, the status update on Mitch Marner, on Morgan Riley, who was out tonight. I guess we didn't really even mention that. There were some guys who were missing tonight that were quite significant. So we'll get into that on the other side, and some news and notes from around the NHL as well. We'll get into next. You're listening and watching the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the big tournament. Whether you're betting on big upsets or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if you in your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on whatever you want. Point spreads, money lines, you can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and bet college hoops until they cut down the nets. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. So Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti, your hosts here at Locked On Leafs, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast. You can find us wherever you get your pods at, wherever you listen to them audio-wise, and also up on YouTube. You got new episodes coming out each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, all throughout the entire season, and even into the off season. We'll be giving y'all content. So make sure you're subbed up to know the latest and best news about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And with the latest, there were a bunch of guys who were out in tonight's game against the Devils. Joel Edmondson ended up missing practice earlier today, or missed morning skate today, along with Morgan Riley. Both of those players did not play tonight. We didn't mention that earlier, which probably is also a big reason as to why they struggled defensively. I would assume those two are pretty big minute munchers and significant pieces to this blue line. So with those guys being out, probably, led to some of what we saw earlier tonight. But what were the updates on those two players and why they missed, and what their outlook looks like throughout the rest of the week?
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with Joel Edmondson. That one kind of came out of nowhere. He's day-to-day with an injury and is not expected to play this week. Don't know what the injury is because Sheldon Keefe is now playing secretive doctor with all the injuries that the Leafs have. Riley was considered day-to-day with, again, an undisclosed injury, and there was a potential he could have played tonight, but he didn't take part in warm-ups, so there was that one was a pretty much an easy, okay, he's not playing. Probably expect him to be back against Washington Thursday, if all things work out well. And look, I have no issue giving guys days off. Guys are going to need those days off.
Especially at this part in the season, right? Where it's, it's not necessarily load management, but it's like, hey, if you're not 100% and we have 9 ready to go NHL defensemen who can technically step up in your place, we can give you a night off if you need it. If you're nursing some sort of bump and bruise, we don't need you to play through it. And, so it allows the depth that the Leafs have picked up on the back end allows for that. So, just to make sure that these guys are ready to go for when it matters come puck drop, come game 1 of the playoffs, right?
Exactly, right. And a couple of things to note on that was I thought the Leafs are better defensively without Morgan Riley in the lineup. I think that kind of got trumped a little bit there. I think it depends on who the Leafs are playing when Morgan Riley's not in the lineup. I did make that point a long time ago. I mean, the Edmondson one really hurt. I think that, like, you look at the guys who were victimized defensively tonight. It was Connor Timmins, Simon Benoit, Timothy Liljegren, Jake McCabe. Like, the pairings all got jumbled because of the Edmondson and Riley absences. So that doesn't bode well. And look, you're also missing Marner and Yarncroke Marner looks like maybe there's a potential that he's inching closer. Yarncroc, we already know that's like next month. He's already on LTIR. He's gone for a bit. So, like, those are pretty important defensive pieces.
Yeah,
that are not in the lineup, right? There's a drop off expected when those guys aren't in the lineup.
oh, 100%. Like there's a drop off from Yarncroc and Nick Robertson, and Robertson in the game thought that he was okay. He was decent. I thought there was a couple of shifts where he was really hustling, and he had that one takeaway actually in the offensive end, which I thought was pretty sweet against, was it D. Simone, whatever that defenseman is.
Yeah.
And he's quite overmatched in terms of size, but, was able to get underneath the stick and pull it off and, sustain some ozone pressure. And, they started to get a couple of chances off of that. So I thought Robertson, did decent in the offensive end. But again, it's away from the puck. What does he do on the defensive end? That's always going to hinder him and what Keefe is looking for when he's looking to trust him in those situations, like he does with Calle Yarncroc. So, he's getting those opportunities, I guess, with Yarncroc out and Mitch Marner, obviously, as well as a winger. But the Leafs need those two back for sure. Obviously, Marner, he's, an all-world player. Like, he literally an all-NHLer twice, all-NHL right winger twice in his career. So they could use him back. And I think now his designation has been changed to day. So at this point, might be expecting him sooner rather than later, which would be great to give him, if he can come back in the next couple of games, gives him 10 games to ramp up, to get, back into midseason form, ready to go for the playoffs. And the Leafs need him to perform in the playoffs. That we know for sure. What's up with Matt Murray, Dave? Why am I seeing Matt Murray all over my timeline all of a sudden, stopping pucks in a Maple Leafs uniform? What's going on, pal?
Yeah, I mean we are hearing, like, Elliot Freeman came out today and said that Matt Murray is going to try to get himself medically cleared to play by the doctor who performed the surgery on him, while Sheldon Keefe is constantly trying to put cold water on this flame and saying, like, they're not anywhere close to seeing Matt Murray being in game action. He's there. He's got a stall. He's been taking shots at practice. Like, it's hard to not have these things come up and people ask questions about Matt Murray. I don't know where exactly the Leafs kind of view this, because it's not like they're going to be able to put him in a condition, like maybe a conditioning stint with the Marlies, but their season ends relatively soon. AHL doesn't have as many regular season games. And, like, I get where Matt Murray's coming from. He wants to still play. Like, his career, he doesn't deem it to be over. You take a surgery like this at the time that he took it in hopes that you can ramp yourself back up for next season.
And for those who forgot, it was a hip surgery that he had, which is not great for goalies.
No, right? And, like, here's the thing. Matt Murray can get the clear from the doctor, get into a game, very well could have a similar thing happen to him again, where the hip just doesn't work out. I think for him, this is just something he needs to figure out. Can this be something I can come back from? And I think that's what he's doing. And the Leafs have to obviously give him the chance to work his way back. They're in charge. Like, this is the whole thing. The NHL is going to be monitoring this, right? There can't be like, oh yeah, no, you guys can do whatever you want with his rehab. Like, no, the NHL is like, if he's in a position where he can rehab and get himself close, they, like, keep a close eye on LTIR situations. They will get things independently reviewed if they feel like the Leafs are parking a guy who's not injured. I've heard that one, and I think that's something that people have to realize. The NHL will step in if the Leafs are trying to impede Matt Murray's ability to play.
Yes, they will, but I don't think the expectation from even Matt Murray is that he'll be ready by the end of the season.
No.
And if he is, it's like with a game or two left. And at that point, Matt Murray will play ball. Like, he will play ball. He's not going to come out and be like, no, you need to make sure you need to send down like 6 guys to make yourselves cap eligible in order to put me on your team and activate me. Like, he won't do that. I can almost guarantee that's not going to happen. However, what goes away in the playoffs?
salary cap.
The salary cap. And at that point, not that he's going to start or that he's going to back up, but at that point, if an injury or two occurs, it's likely he could come into this situation. Now, hopefully, let's knock on wood that it doesn't get to that, obviously. But I mean, that's kind of what happened last year with Wool, right? Like Wool started the year as the number 3 goalie and he ended the season as the number 1, and he was the starter in net when the Leafs got eliminated by Florida, right? Here's one other thing too that I think is interesting about the Matt Murray situation. It makes waiving Martin Jones easier to stomach, because if he gets claimed and in your back of your mind, you're like, okay, Matt Murray could be ready to go come playoff time. If the injuries pile up, Matt Murray could be the third goaltender. Like if we lose Martin Jones to waivers, Matt Murray could be this team's third goalie. Now, how comfortable that would make you if you are the Maple Leafs, considering this guy hasn't played hockey in like 3 years almost, like, right? He hasn't played at all this year. And last year could have played, but they opted to go with Joseph Woll anyway. They're probably not a strong comfort level with Matt Murray, but if it gets to a point where the Maple Leafs have to decide once guys start to get healthy, like I know that Mark Giordano has been cleared, and I think he's good to get activated at some point relatively soon. So when that happens, and if some of these other guys, if Marner gets healthy or they have to bring someone else into the fold and they have to make a roster decision, it makes it a little bit easier to waive Martin Jones as opposed to earlier in the year when they were really hell bent on this 3 goalie system. Just one other thing that I kind of thought about as a silver lining, a perk maybe to the possibility of Matt Murray being an option come playoff time. Definitely not in the regular season, but come playoff time, possibly if things go very south, we'll say. It could be a possibility out there.
Like, let's also not forget how many goalies the Vegas Golden Knights had in their Stanley Cup run season. Like, Eden Hill was not the number 1 option. Like, they traded for Jonathan Quick because they literally needed 5 goaltenders to get through their season. So you just never know. Let's also not forget the injury history that you're dealing with here with both your goalies this year. One had an ankle injury. The other one has had, I don't know exactly what it is this time around with Ilya Samsonov, but it's not one that's making me comfortable. I hate to say it. Like, it could be something that could be a reoccurring thing.
Yeah, I don't know. That was one that we didn't get a strong pulse on today when getting the rest of these injury updates. There wasn't anything strong or conclusive on Ilya Samsonov. That's for sure. All right, on the other side, we'll get to some NHL news and notes. The Nashville Predators are surging, Dave, and they're putting up some unbelievable numbers. We'll get into that, and there's some hate being thrown around on our old friend Zach Hyman. Probably touch on that as well. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti with you, and let's take a look around the NHL a little bit at some of the news and notes from around the league. And one of the newsy items that's kind of taken the league by storm, and the hockey fan base by storm over the last couple of days is Zach Hyman getting to 50 goals the other night. And it's really unbelievable. Obviously, guys like us here in Toronto, we watch Zach Hyman grow into the player that he is. He'll always be known as, the one that got away for most Leaf fans. And watching him go on to score 50 goals is both, painful as a Leaf fan, but also like I'm super happy for the guy and the success that he is having. So at the same time, it's an interesting conundrum that a lot of Leaf fans, I'm sure, have watching him go on and have the success that he's had. That said, Dave, why am I seeing all this garbage trying to like minimize Hyman's achievement? Like whether it's talking about, the fact that, oh, it's because he's next to Connor McDavid, or, oh, he was put in a good spot because his parents were rich. Like, what is going on with some of these people on hockey Twitter, Dave? Like, are you as annoyed as I am by some of the criticism that Hyman is somehow getting because the man just scored 50 goals in the National Hockey League? Something that only 99 other people have ever done prior to him doing that. He's one of just 100 people, now 101 actually, since Sam Reinhart did it. One of 101 people to ever score 50 goals in an NHL season. And people are trying to put an asterisk on it. It's absolutely insane. And it's got to stop people.
It's a couple of things here. One, obviously Leafs fans are being, thrown through the mud because the Leafs let him get away, right? Not choosing to bring him back, letting the others sign him and all those things. So that's part of it, right? They're not going to not all of them are going to be happy about that. And then there's a lot of Leafs fans that are really upset that he's not on the Leafs. Like it was a tough one with losing Zach Hyman.
Right? I love him to be on the Maple Leafs, man. I could find, was he making 5.8 million, I think?
He's at 5.5. Like
I could find you $5.5 million real quick, man, to replace him with that. Dude, Tyler Bertuzzi. As good as Tyler Bertuzzi's been lately, ain't no freaking Zach Hyman, my guy. But anyways, I digress.
And look, has playing with Connor McDavid elevated his game? Absolutely, because he was at most like a 25, 27 goal scorer, which is still really good in the NHL. Like, let's be honest here. He wasn't a bad player. Playing with McDavid has obviously elevated him, and McDavid elevates a lot of players. So it's not like Zach Hyman's a special case here. So we can stop with that. Let's get into the parent or him being a privileged kid. And that was one that really irked me because Zach Hyman is not the only one that grew up with parents that afforded the opportunity for him to play high level hockey.
Dude,
he also has how many brothers that also played hockey? I think he has 4 brothers. He's the only one that's playing in the NHL and having success. So let's throw that garbage argument down the chute where it belongs and should never have been thrown out in the first place. He was a 5th round pick. He had to work his butt off to get to where he was. So the comment, obviously, if you didn't see, was I'm not even gonna put the guy's name out there because I don't think it's deserving to be even thrown out there, but basically saying that hard work wasn't the only reason Zach Hyman got to the NHL. I hate that because I know a lot of people who have worked with Zach Hyman and a lot of like hockey, like youth hockey coaches that have had Zach Hyman come to practices, work with kids, do camps, do workshops. He's done a lot of charity work to give back because when you're a player of that stature, you do that because you want to give back to the community in a way. That's what really irked me is like, this is a guy who's given back in a lot of ways. A lot of people who've loved Zach Hyman, the person, and that's why so many people are happy about the success he's having. Not many. I don't see anybody else saying, yeah, he was afforded this opportunity because his parents gave him the means to do it. A lot of people are in that position. I know I can name a lot of
if there's a sport out there, any of the major sports where you have to be somewhat privileged or come from somewhat of a stable, higher income household or family, it's hockey. He's not the only one. So if you're going to use this to take away what Zach Hyman has done or to try and put an asterisk on it or diminish it in any way, you have to do that with everybody. Everybody. And I don't think you're going to go ahead and do that, are you? Probably not.
You know who scored his first NHL goal tonight as we're recording this? Josh Doan.
Josh Doan. Oh, he worked hard, sure, but hey, his father was a multi-million-dollar NHLer. He clearly had privilege and got to go to the best power, skating. Got to go to that. Okay, lots of kids do that and don't go anywhere because they don't have the talent, skill level, and there is a level of hockey IQ that you need as well to succeed. You know how many players have played with Connor McDavid and haven't produced? Lots of them, my friend.
Yep.
Lots of them. A lot. How many games did they play him with Connor Brown this year without getting him a goal? Connor Brown scored his first goal last week. And he started the season on a line with Connor McDavid. It didn't work out very well. Let's use an example here in Toronto that we all know very, that's relatively familiar with us. Nick Ritchie, right, was afforded this amazing opportunity up on a top line with Matthews and Marner. The guy couldn't score a goal to save his life. Okay. So guess what? It takes a certain player to succeed with these all-star caliber players like Matthews, like McDavid. Okay. And it takes someone who's got the skill and the brains to go along with it. It has nothing to do with money. Come on. It's such a garbage take. Like realistically, all of these people have some sort of, privilege, if you want to call it that, where they were able to do these things, travel to go play hockey, travel to do this, play for, these AAA teams. Most of these teams and these kids and these players in the league could do that. So it's such a garbage take, man. Like Zach Hyman is a terrific hockey player. And something else that he said in his spiel, it was like a 4-minute video. And something else that he said was like, Zach Hyman's good at one thing and one thing only. He just goes to the net. And yeah, he tried to give him credit saying, yeah, he goes to the net. Like that's hard to do. So like, good for him for doing that. But like, that's it. That's his bread and butter. Dude, do you know how much more Zach Hyman does than just go to the net? He does so much more than that. Come on. Like that's just unjustified to say that's like that's what Thomas Holmstrom did. That's not what Zach Hyman does. Zach Hyman goes into the corners, goes into the muck. Zach Hyman can take the puck up, over the blue line and set things. Zach Hyman can do a lot. When Zach Hyman was here in Toronto, he was the fixer. He was the guy who stirred the drink on whatever line. There was a problem with a line. There was a problem with Matthews and Marner. All right, stick Hyman up there. Oh, there's a problem with Willie and Nylander. All right, stick Hyman there. You need to get the third line going. Need a little bit more punch from your bottom end of your lineup. All right, let's stick Zach Hyman out there. You think if all he did was go to the net, then he would have been the fixer for the Maple Leafs? No, I don't think so. You don't become a Swiss Army knife player like that just because you go to the net. It's because you're a good hockey player and you do a little bit of everything that's needed to succeed. And that's why he's having success. Is he necessarily going to be a perennial 50 goal scorer? No, probably not. But to sit here and say that he's only having his success mainly because he was afforded more opportunities as a kid to exceed and to get better is just hogwash, absolute hogwash. Because I can tell you a bunch of rich kids that I grew up with that played AAA hockey that didn't have the passion to work hard to get where they got to go. Money gets you only so far, okay? It takes passion and skill to get you into the NHL, and it takes even more of that motor to get you to 50 goals. And that's why he had a 50-goal celebration the other night. And it's just absolutely insane to me that people are sitting here trying to diminish it.
Yeah,
Rant.
go watch the overtime. First off, mic drop from Mike. Good one there. Go watch the overtime goal he scored tonight against the Jets.
Oh, I haven't seen it. What happened?
He didn't sit in front. He didn't stand in front of the net and collect the easy assist from Connor McDavid. I'll tell you that. He absolutely undressed the Jets defense. First, Mark Scheifele, all-world player, and also Neil Pionk had his back to him. But like Scheifele looked like a peewee player that couldn't afford those opportunities that Zach Hyman got. It was like, to me, it was just poetic to see Zach Hyman score that overtime winner, given everything that's happened today. And I'm sure he appreciated it too.
Just saw it. Just
Mike's watching this as I'm saying this. Like, it's just asinine. I think it sends the wrong message too. This person's trying to make it seem like hard work doesn't get you anywhere. It does when you have. It's not just hard work. Hard work isn't the only thing. People can work hard, but you also got to do the right things on the right path, make the right decisions to get yourself to where you have to go. Zach Hyman did that. You know, he worked hard at Michigan. Wasn't guaranteed anything in the NHL. A trade to the Leafs is what gave his career an opportunity to make it to the NHL. There's a lot of things that had to go Zach Hyman's way, but his hard work is what every person has kind of said is his trademark. And yeah, got to be happy for him.
Because and here's the thing, was there some points that this guy made that, okay, yeah, for sure, everyone works hard. I get that. And that's what I say. He's like, everyone works hard to get to the NHL. And for the most part, that is true. But once you get to the NHL, it's those who put in that extra 10% that get to the level where Zach Hyman gets to. Not everyone's willing to put in that extra 10%. Hyman was, and he's being rewarded for it now. I mean, that's the bottom line. Because Al's bro said so. I needed a what? You didn't give me a what. I wanted a what. You didn't give it to me. None of it.
I should have done it during your rant.
Dave. You're the wrestling guy too, man. You're the one who's going to WrestleMania. You should have to give me your ticket.
No, I'm not doing that. Nope, that ain't happening.
Hey, before you leave, though, we do have to make our WrestleMania card using our we do this every year. If you're new to the podcast, we do this every year. We make a WrestleMania card using the Maple Leafs lineup. So we will be doing that. When's it? 2 weeks from now? When's WrestleMania?
Oh, it's next weekend. Not
next.
Yeah.
So the week after Easter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So not Good Friday, but the Friday after, or maybe the Thursday, depending on when you're leaving, we'll have to do our we'll be putting out that special. So
yes.
Stay tuned, people. Stay tuned. All right, buddy. Good stuff. Let's leave it there. I don't think we got a rant about that moron's rant anymore for today. So that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. A comment down below as well, your thoughts on tonight's game from the Maple Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.